What if all the political chaos you see on the news isn't really about politics at all? Today, we're going to dig into a worldview that sees current events as something way deeper, a spiritual war for the very soul of humanity. Let's break down this perspective as it's laid out in our source material.
And right there, that single idea is the key to this entire framework. It basically changes the lens on everything we see, from street protests to political debates. In this view, what we're witnessing isn't just a disagreement, it's a full-blown crisis of faith, and it's all playing out on the world stage.
All right, so if we're going to really get this perspective, we have to start at the foundation. What does it actually mean to see the world as a spiritual war? The core belief here is that there is absolutely no middle ground. The idea is that every single choice a person makes is fueled by one of two supernatural powers. It's a vision of the universe that's split cleanly into two opposing sides with zero room for neutrality.
And here they are, the two forces in this cosmic struggle. On one side, you have God, who's seen as the source of everything good, life, victory, beauty. And on the other side, there's Satan, presented as a purely destructive force, leading people toward an eternity in hell. And look, this isn't some background conflict. In this worldview, it's the conflict that drives everything else.
So how does this huge cosmic battle actually show up in our world? Well, the source material zeroes in on one key concept that brings this fight from the spiritual realm right into our daily lives, something it calls the sin of rebellion.
Now, this is where this worldview slams right into modern politics. From this point of view, when you see social movements and people challenging authority, that's not seen as a legitimate fight for justice. No, instead, it's interpreted as a direct spiritual attack on the order and the design that God himself established.
Okay, and the way rebellion is defined here is, well, it's everything. It isn't just about disobeying. The source draws a straight line from rebellion to the sin of witchcraft. The idea is that by rejecting what this worldview calls legitimate authority, a person isn't just making a political choice, they are literally opening a spiritual door to dark, demonic influences.
And the source gets super specific about what this rebellion looks like today. It points to a whole range of groups and actions. You've got political ideologies like socialism, organizations like Antifa, and protests against law enforcement. It even calls out immigrants who protest in the countries that took them in, framing all of these as examples of the exact same spiritual mistake.
And wow, this quote, it really captures the absolute conviction behind this argument. It suggests that the motivations we always hear about, calls for justice or freedom or equality, aren't just misguided. In this framework, they're seen as a powerful, deliberate deception, a lie from hell that's designed to lead people down the wrong path.
So with a framework like this, you can imagine the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. So you have to wonder, right? What are the consequences for people who engage in this rebellion? The source gives a very stark and serious warning.
The warning is crystal clear. This is not a political game. Participating is framed as a really dangerous spiritual act. The belief is that the individuals involved are actively dancing with evil forces, and by doing that, they're bringing a curse not just on themselves, but on future generations of their families.
This quote really cuts to the core of what truly matters in this belief system. Physical death? It's seen as temporary, almost insignificant. The real tragedy, the worst death, is spiritual, being eternally separated from God.
And that right there, that's the final destination for those who, according to the source, stay on this path of rebellion. This idea of being locked out is the ultimate consequence, an eternity of suffering, completely and forever cut off from God's presence.
But after painting this incredibly dire picture, the source doesn't just end with condemnation. It actually offers a path to safety, a way out. And this brings us to the final part of this worldview, the path to salvation.
This is where the whole tone shifts, It goes from a warning to basically a direct plea. It's a call to action aimed at those who believe they're fighting for justice, urging them to see that, from this perspective, they're being manipulated, and that there is another path they can choose.
A really clear four-step process for breaking free is laid out. It moves from action to reflection, and then finally to commitment. First, just stop. Second, think critically about what you're actually doing. Third, consciously turn away from what is defined as evil. And then the final, decisive step, choose to accept Jesus Christ.
This final quote is meant to leave zero doubt about the ultimate authority in this worldview. And what's really interesting here is the language, right? You've got these modern corporate terms like CEO and boss mixed right in with traditional titles like creator and judge. It's all meant to communicate a sense of total, absolute control over every part of existence.
And so, in the end, it all boils down to this single powerful question. This worldview takes the conflicts of our time, strips away all the political labels, and reframes them as a stark choice. Is modern rebellion a righteous struggle for a better world, or is it a spiritual battle against a divine order? According to this perspective, the answer you give to that question has eternal consequences.